with this, we come to our final panel for the evening. And like we said, let's save the best for the last. Changing trends in technology are driving factors that actually make EdTech such a booming industry. And I think more so in current times. Our third and final panel will throw light on the key technologies and design innovations that underpin the EdTech revolution. I will briefly introduce our panelists. Their detailed bios would be available in the chat window along with their LinkedIn profiles. So quickly, Aayush Singh Rawat, Director, Cambridge Court Group of Schools. Ayush is also a Mumbai Angels member. Amit Modi, founder and CEO of Technishala Labs. Amit is one of our portfolio companies. And Mayank Kumar from Upgrad will not be able to join us this evening. Instead, we have their CEO, Arjun Mohan, represent Upgrad on this panel. So over to you, our event chair, Joel Pannikot, to take the discussion forward. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so very much, and very warm welcome to Arjun, Amit, and Aayush, the three A's, as it were, for want of a cliche. I had to say something. So thank you so much for this, for being part of this conversation. And this brings us to the third leg of today's conversation, where we first started looking at the general entrepreneurial landscape, the entrepreneurship landscape for education technology. Then we came to what are the larger trends that are kind of threatening the old guard and creating opportunities for the new. And finally, we get to put the tech in EdTech. So with that in mind, I really want to just to outline my vision for this conversation. We obviously technology has evolved a lot in the past few years, and we've seen and heard and are doing things today that was unimaginable even in our own childhood. And I don't care how young anyone in this audience is. In your childhood, the world was not like what it is today. By that benchmark, the world was not what it was like last year. So there is a lot for us to adapt to. But in terms of technology, especially, a lot of new terms and ideas and technologies are being talked about. But what I want to talk with our three panelists today about is how do these technologies integrate? Where do their applications lie? What are the ways in which organizations and the learning ecosystem can be benefited, not just between the teacher and learner and that one very sacred dynamic, but also organizations and the way they operate, their own business efficiencies and what technologies can do for them. So with that in mind, I'd like to invite each of you one by one, and I'll go in alphabetical order. Each of you to share your opening thoughts about this topic of technology, of cutting edge technology from your own personal context. A couple of you. This is very interesting. We have a very unique mix as well. Aayush is an investor. Amit is a founder. And Arjun is an executive CEO who is taking over the vision of another founder and then building that forward. So these will be very interesting perspectives for us as well. So starting with you, Aayush, what do you think about the technology in education and how is that manifesting in the work that you do?
So one thing which has happened for education is that thanks to COVID, a lot of I'll talk from the school's perspective. A lot of staff and people are trained in tech. Their susceptibility to working through apps, working on collaboration, working on Google Sheets is more. So even schools are finally now they are shifting towards data and working on data. So that is a great paradigm shift which has happened. And as far as adoption of tech is concerned, I think good areas where we have already started working on is creating shifting our CRM, dealing with parents to on a WhatsApp platform using chatbots. So I'm assuming that since I have started working on it with something which we've never done before, so I'm assuming that even other schools would be working towards it, other education institutes would be working towards it, and this is a great opportunity for new startups to come in and service. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Aayush. Amit, over to you. What do you think about cutting edge technologies in the education technology space from your own personal perspective?
Yeah, thank you, Joel, for inviting me and Mumbai Angels. So I'll give a short introduction about myself, that I am founder of Tech Shiksha Labs, and it is popularly known as BitBlocks. So it's basically a community of children from 8 years to 16 years who want to learn robotics or drone building. So there is a platform where they can build projects, and then they can share those projects among their community members, like a TikTok platform, and they can win appreciation from others and coins. So gamification elements are there. Now the reason for doing it is that uh, how I'm seeing the technology and how it is changing is like in 1984, computer home computer was invented, like Apple Macintosh was there. And by 1994, computers were introduced in school. I can say 1994 because in my school where I was studying, it was introduced there. And there was a subject called logo. So there is always a prediction that we do, that what is the next 10 years technology change that is going to happen, and then we introduce those things in our school system or in our curriculum. So similarly, and then that helped us in lots of ways, like now we are computer savvy, and then we are doing coding, we are designing lots of applications. We did good with IT. So similarly, now if we look at the current scenario, so children who are there in schools, so we have to think about the next 10 years, what will happen after 10 years, what change will take place, and then based on that we should adopt the skills or technology, whatever curriculum we need to change, we should do based on that. And I feel like what motivates me is that uh, I think that AI is going to be very powerful. AI is a technology, like now we are talking about IoT, everything is getting connected to internet, and every AI is learning. So I just this is the fear which is motivating me, that AI, it becomes so powerful that it can be misused, or it can overpower us. So a very important requirement for all of us, you can call me crazy, but this is a feeling which I always have, and that motivates
I
me.
will not call you crazy, Amit. But at the same time, fear as a motivator has always been a good thing. Arjun, I'll come over to you. Now, Upgrade obviously has become a media darling with the kind of growth you've seen in the recent past. But in terms of technology, what do you see as the organization's kind of prerogative, and how are you approaching cutting edge tech as an organization?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much, Angels, and hoping that the session will be really good for all our listeners. Yeah. So as you started off, right, EdTech is all about implementation of cutting edge technology in education. It's about revolutionizing education with the implementation of tech. I'll talk more from the perspective of Upgrade, what we have been doing. See, we genuinely believe that higher education in India makes sense online. There are millions of people here who don't have access to quality education, which is affordable and not accessible because of multiple reasons. Not there is no college nearby, the college nearby is not having good quality, so many reasons. The only way to give to democratize the education and give access to the best of the teachers and best of the curriculum to everyone is going online. That is our sincere belief, and that is what we have been trying to do at EPGRAD by tying up with some of the most legendary institution, be it IIT Madras or Triple IT Bangalore, IIT Roorkee soon, so on and so forth, right? So that's what we are trying to do. Now, how do you do that? You can't do it without technology. So what we did was, from the beginning, our idea was that we need to recreate every aspect of learning in a classroom online. What existed at that time? A lot of MOOC platforms existed. Now, MOOC platforms is not the online version of your classroom. It's the online version of your library. And how many people really learn from the library? We all know, right? We go into the library, we sleep there, or we just roam around and we come out. So that's not what we wanted to create. What we wanted to create was a classroom. So we looked at each aspect of classroom and recreated it using technology. Started with the basic conceptual education. So we created really good quality videos, which will give you, or which will help you imagine better with 3D graphics. Then the whole aspect of a good teacher doing Q&A, we recreated using live classes. The idea of projects we created using, group, Zoom like interface where you can collaborate with the same uh, document or do a coding of the same code shared between them, GitHub application, so on and so forth. There are plagiarism checkers today, which will ensure that your thesis is not copied by anyone else. The whole examination has been proctored by taking over the webcam and having controls like you can't move away from the same page to something else. So every aspect of learning has been today taken online and given an experience which is as good or better than what you have in your classroom, which I think has only been possible with the help of the UA's technologies. And it's also, if you look at upgrad platform, right, it's just not about one technology. It's actually coming together of a lot of third-party tools also, because we don't think that we can do everything. But the API interfacing today has given us a lot of opportunities. Like you can now work with the best of the best plagiarism checkers in the world. So that's how it is working out. And I think thanks to this edtech revolution, we now are in a position wherein India can rule the edtech market of the world. There is nowhere else where you can provide such a good quality of educational resources at such a low cost structure and add to that great technology. So that's you can say the thoughts which I have in mind when you ask me such a question.
Makes a lot of sense, Arjun. I think you and Amit, like you said, about are in different ends of kind of the entrepreneurial life cycle. So I'll come first to Ayush, though. Ayush, Arjun mentioned the way in which Upgrad, and Amit also mentioned the kind of services that, of course, you obviously have a personal stake in Amit, but they both mentioned looking at the traditional model of education and then picking that apart and through technology trying to see how that can be displaced. Now, you, I know, are involved with a number of traditional model schools as well. Do you see technology as also being able to preserve the traditional model and improve it, or will there be a replacement? Is that how you see it?
So as far as my evaluation is concerned, that depends on the age group also. So see, Arjun here is working, I think he's talking about college students there. So you have a more level of maturity, will to learn, to upskill yourself. So yes, he might have something there. But if you're talking about, classes 11, 12 and below, that is your, teen years when you're growing up. And like one thing I would like to share for sure, like with all the Baijus and all coming with online education, yes, online education is going to be hot till, till next half, six months or so, also even for schools. But the truth about India and about every country is that, schools do allow parents to go to work. They allow them their personal time. And one thing which has come forward, like I can give you data from, school's perspective. So one thing which has come forward is that, yes, parents were paying you fee so that you keep their children safely and, teaching them constructively and for personality development for, 5 or 6 hours or depending on the time. So yeah, that is going to be a challenge. As far as Arjun is concerned and for college students is concerned, the people who are preparing for coaching, I don't know if Upgrad deals with that, but people who are preparing for coaching, there was a lot of notion about, a lot of startups who have gained, I think Unacademy is doing a wonderful job there. But the problem which they have to tackle, I think, is discipline. Because even if they're giving them, tracking reports, etc., web is such a place where, a person, even who's suppose someone is aiming for IIT, JEE, a majority of the students, they can get lost in the internet. They'll probably end up on a YouTube or something. So it'll be interesting how they battle with the discipline part of it. And I hope I was able to clear some questions, Joel. I cannot see you on screen, but
it is network.
Arjun, I think he has some. But what do you think about the discipline part?
I'm so sorry, guys. There was a bit of a glitch in connectivity, but I was able to hear you, Ayush, for like most of the part you're talking about. One thing that I found very interesting that I think you have suggested here is that there could be a potential dichotomy even across the life cycle of education, where beyond say K-12, there is a larger opportunity for tech to come and replace classical models, and below that, maybe technology augments classical models. Amit, do you feel that depending on, so based on your interaction with your markets, and you have a B2C kind of space, do you see yourself as potentially replacing classical kind of the K-12 space as well?
Uh, uh, no, actually, there is a space for both the systems to exist. And uh, for our case, if I would throw light, so we are not into mainstream education. We are more of a uh, extracurricular education. Like we have a platform where we teach children how to build robots, how to build drones, or how to code. And we are a social media platform where they share their projects with other people. They comment on it. So we are a community actually, and this community can coexist. They can go to school and they can have their profile in the community. They can share that they have built a drone, or they are building a AI based projects. So I think that there is space for everyone, and school is really important. We all are part of the school system, and we cannot just say that a school system will go.
Makes sense, Amit. And I think, yeah, I guess it might not go, but probably there is a tremendous need for evolution. And that brings me to you, Arjun, in terms of the opportunities that are emerging for new economy companies like yours to work with the old guard through technology. Do you see older organizations and even professional organizations, corporate firms, reaching out to you to augment their own kind of learning platforms and LMSs?
Yeah, that's happening in a big way now. So it happens in two ways for us, at least. One, there is a B2B business. Most of these companies are taking their trainings online these days, and hence they are leveraging of people like us to give our platform more of. So there are two pathways there also. One is using our platform and they have their own content. A lot of people are saying that you just give me a solution which is plug and play. But the second aspect of partnership is what is very exciting. So what companies today are doing is that they are tying up with organization like us to provide them students or learners who can be employed. It's very simple. So it's like a company like an HDFC or a Tata or a PNB comes to us saying that we want you to help us with hiring so many people, training them and making them ready from day one. So fundamentally, the issue is that, especially with the current world, right, where people don't stay in a particular job for a long time, the amount of investment organizations do in training them, skilling them, getting them ready is humongous. Because by that time, this guy is looking for something else. So what they're trying to do is that, can I figure out a model wherein they come in, they take our training, and then only they come in. So from day one, they are productive. So that's becoming a trend these days, especially for large scale recruitment. More and more training and hiring, the sourcing and the hiring part is merging together. So yeah, so I don't want to call it as new age companies or old age companies. I would like to say people who have not been used to working with digital technologies are today embarking on their journey of picking up digital technologies in a big manner. And obviously people like us have been working with digital technology for long, so they are partnering with us. But yeah, that's an ongoing trend, and everyone seemed to be open to the idea.
It's wonderful, and I think the way you, while yes, you're right that it's probably not a dichotomy as much of new age versus old. A flexible business model like yours or Amit's creates the opportunity also to then plug yourselves into other ecosystems than the traditional kind of learner journey. And I would imagine, just as Coursera has been, for instance, now, in fact, one of their largest commercial objectives seems to be to not replace but partner with business schools, colleges, or in general higher ed institutions. And there's a lot of interesting kind of synthesis happening there as well. Now what I want to do is to talk to each of you, and in the previous conversations we've been doing a bit of a rapid fire kind of round where I ask, we do a word association game. With the three of you though, I want to do something slightly differently. We'll still stay in the rapid fire mindset, what I'm going to do is to say to you, each of you, and this will repeat for all three of you, the name of a technology, and each of you will have to give me one sentence on where do you find it having the best application in the education technology space, in the edtech learning ecosystem. And in the learning ecosystem, I'm not limiting it just, like I said, to formal education. Let's do it formal, vocational, kind of intermediaries between the two in any possible way, right? But what I'm looking for each from each of you, and we'll go in the order once again of Aayush, Amit, and Arjun. Um, so I'll say the name of the technology. Each of you gives me just one sentence. So you need to pack your thought into that much of the best possible business application, right? So yeah, and again, no coffee hampers happening here. But starting with you, Ayush, IoT, Internet of Things.
So Internet of Things is everywhere. Like my one sentence would be like everywhere in education. That is it.
Everywhere in education.
Everywhere in education.
Amit, what do you think?
Yeah, IoT, like we can have lots of devices.
One application. I've become that guy now. One application.
Okay, for the controlling robots.
Controlling robots. But let's try to keep ourselves within the education space. Yeah, Arjun, one application.
Learning to be a tinkerer. Learning to be a tinkerer.
Learning to be a tinkerer. That's interesting. That's kind of a knowledge domain that you're looking at. Interesting. Next one, immersive learning. So we're looking at actually let's separate this. Let's do AR, VR, and MR separately. Ayush, augmented reality.
Augmented reality would learning something which where I cannot go, something which where I cannot go physically. Yeah,
That's interesting. So okay, once again, I'm also allowing you to pass the question. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Amit, augmented reality.
Uh, Content, lots of content development can be done on it.
Content development can be done, yeah, but okay, fine. That's a good one. Arjun, AR.
Science experiments online.
Science experiments online. Interesting. Now, Arjun, I'm coming back to you. Virtual reality. That's different from augmented reality.
Bringing the sport part into online learning.
Sport learning, sport opportunities. Great. Sport. Did you say sport like sports? Or
Yes.
okay, that could be very interesting. Yeah.
There is a, I mean, like if you allow me to say second sentence, I can tell you the idea.
Okay, the second sentence.
Yeah. So fundamentally, there is this idea which we have always been thought about. See, what's the problem with K-12 tablet learning today, especially and I'm sure I used to be the CBO and an early founding member of Byju. So one of the problems we always had was that after some time, these videos are addictive, and people just love to binge watch it out, and it's not really good, right? Sitting in front of a tab for really long. So how do you make them do the other part, which is essential for childhood of going out and learning? Okay, one way is you bring the whole tracking and the dashboarding part into that also. So the idea was, think about a VR, what do you say, a smart band, and the app tells you that now you've been seeing videos for last 1 hour. You go out and play, and it tracks in the VR part of it.
I guess that has tremendous applications in from the biometric perspective as well. So just knowing, I in fact even envision a future where being able to monitor a child's pulse, temperature, and heart rate should be able to tell you what they are feeling and how they're reacting to learning as well. Horribly invasive, both positive and negative. Amit, you have a thought on that?
Yeah, so that is what I said at the starting, that I'm
There is-
scared of that situation. And
Yeah.
there I want to comment that is where we need to act. Like we know that such kind of situation can happen where technology can overpower us or it can be misused. So maybe we should equip our children with skills and knowledge so that they can survive off grid. Maybe they can tinker, they can create their own machines, they can create their own operating system which is not hijacked, and they can have their own encryption technology so that AI cannot hijack it. So there are lots
I
of
like I like the way you think, Amit. It's at once very inspiring and very scary as well. Okay, but let me come back. I really want to run through this list of technologies, and then we'll have a last little conversation on the risks around it. Ayush, chatbots.
Chatbots. Chatbots
Again, one
are
sentence.
will be very useful client focused applications.
Client focused applications. That makes a lot of sense. Amit, chatbots.
immediate response.
Immediate respond. Okay, fair. In the same ballpark. Arjun, any different application of chatbots?
Skills.
Sales. And yeah, of course, in the end, isn't that what they're measured on, ironically? um, and then what about drones, drone technology? Any application in learning at all?
I mean, again, I would say sport. I mean, tracking the kids and sports and other things.
Right. So, in fact, security, that's possibly a thing, right? Yeah. So, and the sports, of course. Um, uh, Amit, drones?
Yeah, there can be lots of drone based games, or we can control drones and we can learn how to fly.
Right.
We can learn aerodynamics.
Wonderful. So, the kind of aspects of various subjects merged into one. So, kind of learning by doing. Ayush, do you see any applications?
In education, it can be used for image recognition since you can pair a camera and a drone. Image recognition,
Right. But again, that comes in the space of surveillance, security,
security more.
right? And which, in fact, if
For
you
education,
hear
can
some
be
of
fun
these,
with learning. For education, it can be fun with learning something like that, some outdoorsy activity for kids.
makes a lot of sense. And okay, the last tech I want to talk about is 3D printing. Ayush,
Yes.
3D printing.
Okay. That is 3D printing is producing what you think. So it is the best sort of you get an output. Children love it when they get an output and something they made.
The tactile feeling of taking something out of the
Yes.
digital world and into the
Yes.
real, yeah, that would be very interesting. Amit, any other ideas around 3D printing?
Yeah, it gives me a sense of freedom that we can create anything, like be a creator.
I'm surprised you did not say that students could potentially print weapons and then that is something to be worried about.
No,
Arjun,
I'm not so pessimistic.
it's a learning opportunity, right? They learn life skills.
Yeah.
Arjun, what do you think?
It's creating models, building stuff. That's a pretty interesting thing most kids likes to do.
Makes sense. And you're right. Actually, taking something from an idea to a digital representation of it to something in the real world could be very fascinating. But here's the thing, right? And as technology synthesize with each other, there's going to be numerous opportunities. We're already seeing AI-driven design and 3D printed prototyping and even mass production eventually when the technology becomes cheap enough. The last conversation I wanted to talk about, which Amit has been bringing up over and over, is the risks of this. What should we be aware of and perhaps concerned about with with the emergence of these technologies? And what do you see as what should we do about it? So just a quick thought from each of the three of you, and then we can start come to us closing thoughts. Ayush, what are the risks?
So talking about the risk, and I'll speak from experiences and data. So now what has been happening is there has been an increase in cyber crimes and POXO cases in among school students. I'm talking about. So yeah, that is because like all of a sudden with from no internet exposure or very protected internet exposure, they came to that being one. And other risks are again privacy is a huge risk. Third risk I would say is health related. So a lot of students are already complaining about they're having a pain in eyes, they're having headache problems. Almost all children are having headache problems. The school had to really revise their timetables to adjust all that, and finally government had to intervene to come up with only a very few limited number of education hours. So these are big problems which
That's
students
true.
are
So
feeling
I'm
ground
hearing
reality.
um ethical, moral issues. I'm hearing security issues, and I'm hearing
Hearing health.
physical issues as well.
Yes.
Amit, what do you feel? What I mean, of course, doomsday please. What else do you think are the risks? First,
No, Joel, it's not
um,
about
I'm
doom.
messing with you. I'm very sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
please.
So the point what I want to make is that I feel personally that AI can become powerful and technology can become powerful, And apart from that, our generation means the future generation, they are becoming a lot of like consumers of technology, and that is where I want to teach. And that is why, that is the motivation behind BitBlocks, that we are creating a community and we are feeding them with knowledge and content so that they can build projects, they can learn robotics, design machines, and at least they can solve the problems of the future, whatever problems are there.
Makes sense, yeah. And it's a skill set that I think will help them to harness technology and not be subject to it, not fear it. Arjun, what are your thoughts in terms of risk? What are you seeing in as you work right now, or what do you generally foresee as a risk?
So my idea may be a little more revolutionary. Pardon me for that. See, the thing is, the way I see it is that when you're moving or when you're changing your underlying assumption, or when you're changing a very basic mode which you have been using for really long time, right? There is a lot of uncertainty. There is a lot of unknown in it, and hence risk will be always there. I'm sure that from the old Gurukul systems where the teacher just spoke the ideas rather than I mean, and moving from that to a written form of knowledge through books. I'm sure that at that time also a lot of people who were practicing Gurukul system would have said that, okay, there's so many risk associated with books. How can you do something like that? So we are actually at a pinnacle of a revolution where creating videos is too easy. I mean, like recreating content which is so simple to impart, and like the technology is really taking over our life. So I mean, these days we can't live without our phone. What we should understand is that the mode of our information transmission has changed, and this mode is so full of uncertainties, so full of unknowns. Till the time we figure out, there will be risk. But I would say that you figure out. I mean, that is how there are more people who are fixing up things also, right? Bringing in the control. In my opinion, all these risks exist all the time if you want to continue on your life. Fundamentally, you have to give your children, who is at the pinnacle of it, the right moral values and the right literacy, and I call it as not literacy, education, so that they know the difference between right and wrong. That's what I would say is the solution to it. Otherwise, we'll just keep on
That's so
figuring
true.
out.
No, you're right. That's so true, right? And in the end, if education is not able to help us A, adapt to change, and B, be nice to each other, C, hopefully in doing that, be happy.
Yeah.
I don't know, right? And funnily enough, tech does not feature in all of this. Tech, I think, always continues to remain a medium of expression of just human values. So, and like I was saying in the previous panel as well, this conversation about tech replacing humans. I think tech is just pushing human beings to be more human and taking away what was otherwise the dehumanizing grunt work of any kind of repetition, any kind of repetitive activity. It's making it possible today for one teacher to be able to be personal and available with so many more students. So all of this is making that connection, I think, a lot more interesting. And obviously, there's a lot more to be explored, thought, and learned about in this space. But I think it's a wonderful set of thoughts. So just one last round I'll go with all of you is your closing thoughts in terms of your one line of advice to investors and one line of advice to entrepreneurs from your perspective relating to cutting edge technology in education EdTech. So Ayush, once again, like always, alphabetically, we start with you.
I don't know if that's an advantage or a disadvantage.
It just so happens that you are here.
So yeah, so my one line of like, are we talking about takeaways here, Joel?
Yeah, takeaways, yeah. So these are your closing comments for both investors and entrepreneurs.
So yes, for investors, definitely, COVID has changed. There has been a drastic change in the thinking. So a lot of like edtech is definitely going to be on the rise, and there's a lot of acceptability that has come in. So it's a place to invest in. Even I'm looking for new ventures there. And as far as entrepreneurs is concerned, so like I think you only were mentioning right now. So focus towards automation is very important now. Everything repetitive has to go away, and we have to look for APIs or tools from which we can automate parts of our business to grow.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Aayush. Amit, over to you.
For investors, the takeaway is that they trust is very important, and that helps the founder take bold decisions. That is one. And for entrepreneurs, this is a good time, and a lot of opportunities are there. So it's a good time to start.
Thank you so much, Amit. And I think it's very nice of you to very subtly say trust is so important. Thanks, Siddhan.
No, I didn't mean for anyone. It's a general statement.
Again, Amit, I must apologize. I've been a few times too many in this conversation, but you've been a sport, so thank you so much for that as well. Arjun, your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's not an advice or anything. These are just parting thoughts. So for investors, especially in EdTech, right, you really need not have a innovative idea. It can be innovation in a lot of other things. It can be innovation in process. It can be innovation in brand building. It could be anything. Byju's was definitely not the first K-12 brand. It was Topper who took money and growing. But look at where Byju's is today, right? And Byju's didn't have a strong idea. It was the same idea. It was series of small wins or small corrections or small innovation which we did on the way. It was in sales, it was in marketing, it was in process, it was in things as simple as selling a tablet along with the product.
Right.
So what I would say is that it is never about that innovative idea which is defining a market or creating a market. It is about finding that passionate entrepreneur who can take it to the next level, who will never say die. That's what I have learned from my life.
Wonderful.
In case of entrepreneurs, as Amit also mentioned, I really think if you are in EdTech, this is the era of India. We have the best educations. We have an extremely good population of a skilled youth who is well versed in English, who can pick up who can pick up information dissemination or teaching in a very easy manner. We have a cost structure which is unbelievable. Nobody can really come near us. And hence we are the only place, and of course the technology, right? The kind of technology prowess we have in this country is also unparalleled. So today, if any country can build an EdTech behemoth, which can control the EdTech across the world, that is India. There is no other country who can execute the one-on-one live model like India today. So if you are in education or if you are an entrepreneur at this time, there has been no better time. You don't even need to take money because the cost structures are like that. So I would say that be on it, be passionate. This is the time to win.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Arjun. I think it's brilliant for us to be ending at this supremely optimistic note, which at the same time should be a warning to anyone in this business that if you do not make it, then you have us to answer to. On that note, let me hand over to Shivangi for her closing comments for the day.
I think before I give my comments, Joel, if you would like to add, since we've been doing alphabetical in this panel, I think I would like to stick to that.
Okay, I guess seeing as I'm the last bit away. But I guess my thoughts are about education technology and the opportunities that exist are pretty clear. There is tremendous opportunity, but at the same time, I keep coming back to first principles. What is education trying to deliver? What is the problem that is trying to be solved? Whether it is in the student-learner, the teacher-learner relationship, or whether it is in the various aspects of the business, like Arjun mentioned, doing small little things right across the entire value chain. A simple thing like selling tablets with a learning package makes sense because that is how you create an ecosystem. And while COVID has done a lot for the kind of online learning space, that alone is not education technology. There is so much more that can be done. Again, from the content space, from the learning philosophy space, I think there is a tremendous need also for academic research into learning dynamics that is cross-functional. just the way behavioral finance emerged as a combination of finance and psychology and economics as kind of a cross-functional uh, area, a domain of knowledge, there needs to be a lot of research at these very high levels as well. Exploring fundamentally what learning is about. And today we have the tools to do it. Today we have the tools to map our brainwaves as learners learn. So that investment, and in fact, commercially organizations are doing it to see what are the best ways ads can be positioned for people so that they buy more stuff. The education, it's, I think, incumbent upon the education technology sector, as it were, to look deep within and invest also in these fundamental bits of research in order to think about what is the kind of world we are creating tomorrow and what are the building blocks that are available today that will help us do it. So on that very broad sweeping note, I really think it's a conversation around conscience as much as it is around commerce. So I think that's where EdTech should be headed. If the heart in the right place, in all likelihood, the head will follow, and we'll be able to build, like Arjun says, a behemoth in India. There's tremendous opportunity once we begin. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, Joel, for the concluding remarks, and thank you, Arjun, Amit, and Ayush. In fact, interestingly, we have an entire ecosystem, mini ecosystem on this panel itself, with an angel investor, funded startup, and a super successful startup, all being represented in one go.
And an ad hoc philosopher as well.
Yes, and an angel platform. So I think we've pretty much covered it. Jokes apart, I think this has been a very insightful discussion. I hope that the founders present today who've been part of the summit and who are listening in take home some insights. I think this has been pointed out again and again by multiple panelists that this is the time if you wish to capitalize on any kind of opportunity being represented. We don't know whether this time will come again. So good luck. And I think with that, let's conclude the virtual summit for everybody.